Welcome to Global Investment Voice, your premier podcast for diving deep into the world of investment migration. Are you dreaming of a second or third passport? Then join us as we traverse the globe, exploring the ins and outs of the U.S. EB-5 immigrant investor visa, uncover the secrets of golden visas, and delve into the many residency and citizenship by investment programs. Each episode is packed with exclusive insights from top industry experts. Whether you're an investor, developer, or a visionary entrepreneur, we're here to guide you through the complexities of global investment migration. And who better to navigate this journey with than your hosts, the dynamic legal duo of this industry, Mona Shah and Rebecca Singh. Plus, hear directly from a lineup of global investment migration leaders. So, buckle up and tune in to Global Investment Voice, where your global investment journey begins and expands.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Sam. Good to have you back on our show.
Is good to be back. I'm happy.
You've been here many times, I know, and we've discussed all kinds of issues from the Caribbean to what's going on in the world globally. And you are a Canadian lawyer, but we actually haven't talked very much about Canada.
Well, it's about time.
When did you pass the bar in Canada, and when did you start practicing?
92. 92
Oh, wow.
was when I was admitted to the bar. So it's 34 years now? Wow, it's a long time. Doesn't make me younger, but make me wiser.
But Canada has really come into the news quite a lot lately, from not only from Carney's great speech just recently at Davos, but more so because it's been a destination for business immigrants. The longest time, Canada, like America, is built on immigration. But recently, 2025 has marked a dramatic turning point.
Yes. Well, first of all, Canada, and when we talk immigration, is a brand name. Everyone's desire is to come to Canada. We're such a great country, despite the harsh winter we're having this year, but it's great. Unfortunately, I'm not practicing much in Canada these days because most of the business immigration routes are nearly closed. It used to be great.
Right. I see that. Canada traditionally has welcomed business immigrants in multiple ways. I know that. And there were 4 federal programs, or maybe more, which I'm sure you will enlighten us on. But they all now seem to be closed, suspended, or severely restricted. And it seems that this has come at a critical time when really Canada needs entrepreneurial talent more than ever.
Oh, yes. Entrepreneurial, for one major reason, is the fact that most of our small and medium-sized businesses are the owners are about to retire. We're talking nearly 300,000 businesses. There was recently an article by PDC Canada saying about that there's going to be a wave of $300 billion of business acquisition, where nearly half of the small and medium-sized businesses are owned by people who are 50 plus, and they're planning to take their retirement in the next 5 years. So who's going to take over these businesses? We're talking billions, we're talking hundreds of thousands of jobs, and we're talking a significant part of our GDP.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, when we first started doing EB-5, Canada really was the main competitor. And I know the Federal Immigrant Investor Program was the one launched in 86. And when that was terminated in 2014, I know over here in the US, we were really happy about it. And that one was the one, I understand, which was required 800,000, initially 400, then 800. But why was it cancelled?
First of all, the federal investor was a passive investor route, which was basically writing a check and getting the permanent residency visa. A few qualifications, like you had to have a net worth, and of course show that how you have some management experience, 2 years, and how you have accumulated your net worth. That was easy. But before the federal investor program, we had other programs, provincial, similar to Quebec. There was a Northwest Territory Fund, there was Alberta Fund, there was a Saskatchewan Fund, which was praised with lots of problems. Of course, the federal investor program ran very well up to, I would say, 2010. And that's where I think, in my opinion, the federal government made a monumental mistake. And that was to simplify the application process by introducing a 2-page application form where
Oh.
potential investor had to just to fill up a 2-page form, basic identity, and informing if they have enough net worth and they're willing to make the investment. And there you go. They had a file. That made the file number skyrocket to nearly 70,000. And in 2012, the federal government realized that most of these cases were bogus. So they stopped the program in 2012, and effectively in 2014, they closed the program. And think there was nearly 65,000 applications which were refunded.
Oh, wow. I did write a blog post at that time, I remember. And I did say in my blog post that the problem was that the investors, mostly from China, paid less taxes and they didn't maintain ties to Canada.
Well, there's always been a negative perception of the investors. Yes, it's true. They were coming in by just paying an entry fee to come in. And did they pay their fair share and contribute? Probably not. But there could have been ways around to entice them to stay longer. And it's not just investors. The same thing with skilled workers. We have the same problems. People coming in, and then once they have the citizenship, they relocate to the US or they go back to their country. So it's not just the investor program. I think it's the overall view of how to push people to stay. For example, look at Australians. When you migrate to Australia, you must stay within the designated area that you said you were going to settle, and you must stay there. Plus, some people are getting their permanent residency conditional on the fact that they capable of working within their designated field that they said they were going to work in. In Canada, this seems to be very difficult to enter, but once they come in, they're free to do whatever they want. They can move, go back and forth, and work, not work. So that creates chaos, which Quebec tried to address in their Quebec Industrial Program in 2024, which is a disaster because they introduced some factors that nobody can fulfill almost.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because really that was what I would say the last passive option standing for Canada was the Quebec, or rather is the Quebec Investor Program.
Is the Quebec.
And it was closed. It was suspended from 2019, reopened in 24, I believe. But you're telling me in 25 that the new requirements are problematic. I know one of them is mandatory French proficiency, which would put a lot of people off. But what else?
Well, first of all, let's again go back to history. I sound like a history teacher. Quebec used to take thousands. I mean, we're talking 8, 9, 10,000 applications a year. Then they introduced a few years ago a cap of 1,950, reserved 60% of that for the Chinese applicants, and the 40% of that 1,950 for the rest of the world. And it was always well oversubscribed. So they always had more than 1,950 applications. Then suddenly they closed it. Then in 2024, or when they introduced the new legislation, they had this mandatory French B2 level, which is someone speaking fairly well French, listening, speaking. And then that made it that the numbers dropped to 1 digit, So we went from thousands into, few a year. And the program is now dead in the water. And basically by introducing the French requirement, and now we have basically closed potential applicants from Asia, Middle East, Latin America, and even parts of Europe.
But people can still go there if they want to invest 1.2 million.
Yeah, if they want to, but there don't seem to be much. Plus, if someone speaks well French and he has the management and has the money, well, why would they put 1.2 million as zero interest with the Quebec government for 5 years? They just come in and buy a business or start a business. They're capable, they're educated, they speak the language. So they come in as an entrepreneur.
But I was going to ask you, I know, Sam, you speak French very well, but do you need it on a day-to-day basis when you're working and moving around in Quebec?
Absolutely not. I mean, Montreal is fully bilingual, and there are parts of Montreal, actually, people don't speak French, they speak English. But overall, in the province, you need French because of the laws, so the signs are in French. If you have a company above 25 employees, everything needs to be in French. Which I can understand historically why they want to keep the French heritage. But then again, you're swimming against a current in a sea of nearly 400 million English speaking people in North America, and an American culture which is omnipresent.
So, from your perspective, it's really not viable. But Sam, a lot has been said lately, and from on business chats and articles about the whole problems with the startup visa, which started very optimistically.
Well, the startup program, when it started, was a tremendously great idea. A
Yeah.
modern, innovative program to attract innovators, you know, but it did not work the way it was intended. The original idea was innovative business ideas or business people that have innovative ideas can convince a venture capital fund, an angel group, or an incubator in Canada to support them. And then they get a visa to come immediately to Canada on a non-conditional residency visa. And there could be 5 co-founders in that program. The idea is great because when it started, all the tech business and innovative businesses were high on everyone's agenda, I would say.
Yeah, highly sought out. And especially right now that all the tech people are leaving the US. Well, not all, but many, where they can't get visas.
But basically what happened is the people in the industry, I think they destroyed it by filing thousands and thousands of applications where when they had to close it in October 2025, there was 42,000 applications where the last ones were going to have a processing of 35 years waiting time. It
Wow.
is ridiculous. That's why they had to close it. But there was a lot of sham in it. There was a lot of sham. There was a lot of, I call it paper startups, where
You
on
mean
paper
fraud?
there was an idea. Of course, there was fraud. I mean, the whole thing was sold outside of Canada as a passive visa to Canada. Although this was a non-conditional permanent residency visa, it was sold outside as a non-conditional visa to Canada as an innovator, where you're part of a group of 5, but once you get this non-conditional visa, then you're free to do whatever you want. And of course, enforcement is an issue here as well, because if the government would actually beef up its enforcement, inland enforcement, a lot of these files would be flagged as, yeah, you said your 5 were going to work together on this idea, but it appears after you landed, your communication with each other is 0, and there was 0 work on this file. So this was a sham. You mislead us, so therefore we need to cancel your visa. If there would be a massive enforcement on that, people won't be able to sell. And I think the government has completely neglected its advertisement, saying to potential applicants that, hey, this is not a passive way to get a residency to Canada. You need to be actively engaged with your core founders, partners. That's why we have what we have now. And now that Canada needs to have these sort of businesses come in to start these innovative ideas. Instead, there seems to be a big gap between the political rhetoric and the operational realities, and the trust is gone.
I thought that you could still apply until June 30th of 2026, no?
Yeah, but with processing times going years and years and years, who would be interested? Because you would be at the end of the queue.
Well, you've told us what went wrong, but how could this have been prevented, in your opinion?
Well, as I said, inland enforcement, to show some people that, hey, you cannot defraud us. That would have been served as a lesson to some people. Public execution, not literally, but of consultants who are selling these programs, and that could also eliminate a lot of fraudster. But then again, the government, they know what's being said, advertised outside. They don't act on it, and there could be more interviews where they could talk to these applicants and truly see if they're working together. The idea, I think, is still great. We need these. There was a lot of oversight on incubators, not truly respecting the ministerial instructions. Those are some of the problems. And as I said, there was a lot of paper startups. rather than
Ah,
real innovations.
that's sad. But there are still two other options for people wanting to come in, I understand, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but there's a self-employed persons program. Is that closed? And then there's something called the Canada's SMEs?
Yeah, well, the self-employed is closed at the federal level. This was a great, again, program, a pathway for people to obtain their permanent residency. It wasn't about investors. It was about artists, athletes, and people, professionals in the cultural and recreational areas. That was bring in people that would significantly contribute to Canada's cultural or athletic life. That program is closed, but it didn't have a formal net worth threshold or anything else. You just had to show that you are truly a self-employed. The program is closed. It's very sad. It closed in April 2024 again. 24 and 25 seems to be the year they're closing all the business avenues. So
Yeah.
yeah, no more self. So if Ronaldo wanted to come to live in Canada, we couldn't take him.
And I also read that rural Canada's been hit the hardest because everybody seems to be just progressing and migrating towards the big cities like Toronto. But apparently, what is it? 98% of rural businesses locally owned. They're really struggling.
Well, that's what I said in the beginning. We have a SME succession crisis now, the
Yes.
perfect storm, I call it, where, nearly 75% of 1.2 million small business owners plan to exit within the next decade.
Wow.
That's over $2 trillion of business asset that needs to change hands, and then who's going to take over these? I mean, what is needed now? I mean, if the government asked me, is business immigration to Canada dead? My answer would be, is politics struggling at the extremely worst possible moment
Right.
economically? This
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
time to expand business immigration, not to contract. And as I said, in 2024-25, it seems we're contracting. And I don't think in 2026 we're going to see it if Canada doesn't solve this issue of SME succession.
Canada really does need entrepreneurs to solve this crisis, as you say. And there does seem to be a policy disconnect. But what opportunity do you see for policy advocacy and reform, if any?
Well, definitely we need to design intelligent programs that match immigrant entrepreneurs with uh, those of and succession opportunities with SMEs. And that's what's needed. Immigrant entrepreneurs could be part of a solution where we bring capital, experience, and a strong motivation to succeed and match them with these SMEs and these owner operators who want to leave the business. So we need 100,000 entrepreneurs in the next 20 years. That's just impossible. I mean, current numbers are 500. And in my estimate, we need 100,000 for the next 20 years. So that's a great opportunity. And in the same time, well, 500 is definitely not going to answer that. So what's the answer is for people maybe to get SME, to get a work permit, come in here, set up their business, get involved in a business, and go through the maybe entrepreneur nominee program, provincial one, build a Canadian presence, the visa C11, and then do the ultra intercompany transfer, get a work permit, invest genuinely in a relationship with Canada, banks, local partners, some businesses, and then see what we can do.
Some great thoughts there, Sam. It couldn't come at a worst possible time with aging business owners and all of the crises there. But thank you for giving us your thoughts and the bigger picture.
Canada is not dead as a destination for an entrepreneur. It is no longer an easy one size fits all market, but the era of purely passive, write a check investor program at the federal level is over. You know, the new game is active, engaged, and often regional. You need to build a real business case, accept some geographic flexibility, and be prepared for multi-step journey, work permit establishment, then permanent residency.
Sam Bayat, as always, it's a pleasure to hear your theories, your thoughts, and we welcome you back again.
Well, it's good to be back, Mona. It's always a pleasant exchange of ideas and information with you, and I love to be on your show.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Global Investment Voice. A huge thank you to all our listeners for tuning in and sharing this journey with us. Curious about unlocking the potential of global migration and citizenship? Make sure to visit us online at mshawlaw.com and globalinvestmentvoice.com. Dive into our extensive library of podcast episodes. Stay ahead with the latest in migration news by signing up for our insider newsletter. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to keep the conversation going. Remember, the insights shared in our podcast are for informational purposes only, so please seek tailored legal, financial, or investment advice where needed. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep investing smart and living well with Global Investment Voice. We'll see you on the next episode.